All opinions and quotations in no way represent River West Radio and are the sole responsibility of the producer, guests, and callers. River West Radio is not liable for any legal issues arising from the content of this program.
You know why you're here, Mr. Wordsworth?
Yes, sir.
I'd ask you to speak up a little, if you will.
Yes, sir. I know why I am here.
You've been under investigation, Mr. Wordsworth, for the mandatory period of 1 year and 11 months. You're found to be obsolete. The purpose of this hearing is to make a finding in the matter and make a sentence accordingly. Do you understand that?
I understand that.
Your occupation, Mr. Wordsworth?
A radio talk show host.
A what?
A radio talk show host, sir.
I'm told you've had counsel and been given orientation, Mr. Wordsworth, but I'm still not sure in my own mind that you understand the purpose of this hearing. The field investigators in your sector have classified you as obsolete. This finding carries with it serious implications. Do you understand that, Mr. Wordsworth? Now I ask you again, your occupation?
I am a radio talk show host. That is my occupation, my profession. If you people choose to call that obsolete...
Request clarification of the term? Yes, the term. Now, Mr. Wordsworth, you people, you make reference to the state.
I make reference to the state.
And you persist in declaring your occupation, correct?
That is correct.
A minister. A minister would tell us that his function is that of preaching the word of God. And of course it follows that since the state has proven that there is no God, that would make the function of a minister somewhat academic as well.
There is a God.
You are in error, Mr. Wordsworth. There is no God. The state has proven that there is no God.
You cannot erase God with an edict.
You are obsolete, Mr. Wordsworth. You have no function, Mr. Wordsworth. You're an anachronism, like a ghost from another time.
I am nothing more than a reminder to you that you cannot destroy truth.
You're a bug, Mr. Wordsworth, a crawling insect, an ugly, misformed little creature who has no purpose here, no meaning.
I am a human being. I exist. And if I speak one thought out loud, that thought exists, even after I'm shoveled into my grave.
Illusions, Mr. Wordsworth. Illusions, the Bible, poetry, essays, all kind, all of it an opiate to make you think you have a strength when you have no strength at all. You have nothing but spindly limbs and a dream, and the state has no use for your kind.
Yeah? Well, we're gonna have to do something about that. This is RiverWestRadio.com, community-supported radio streaming live from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'm your host. My name is Michael Wordsworth, and welcome to Breaking Down the News, the show that presents the news highlights of the week, but with a twist. Breaking Down the News is more concerned in bringing you information that wasn't covered on the front pages. Headlines you don't want to miss, because not listening could be dangerous to your freedom, liberty, and health.
And good afternoon. Welcome to Breaking Down the News. I am Michael Wordsworth. Today is Friday, August 10th, 2012. And again, thank you for joining us. It's going to be a long Friday show, so sit back. Plenty of news to bring to you. One of the things I want to cover immediately, we've been going over the Sikh temple shooting recently here in Milwaukee. Actually, out in Oak Creek. I know everybody by now is aware of it. What they aren't aware of is the in-depth behind-the-scenes reporting that's being done by alternative media sources. Very little of the truth actually getting out in the mainstream, or at least they're slow, reticent to put it out there. This article from Paul Joseph Watson brings an amazing question over eyewitness reports of multiple shooters. And the most interesting this is just unbelievable. For some reason, the security cameras in the Sikh temple here in Oak Creek were shut off on that day. I know, it makes our job here just... as reporters, you got to wonder. I mean, why can't they just have it open and shut? I mean, the CIA, the FBI, they always got to leave some loose ends. Somebody left some loose ends here. It's almost like just enough to let us know that something isn't right. We're not getting the whole news. I wanted to get some actual eyewitness people on the show. It hasn't been that easy. But let me cover this article, and then we'll take it from there. Surveillance cameras turned off during Sikh temple shooting. Questions as to whether there were multiple shooters involved in the Sikh temple massacre are likely to remain unanswered, given the fact that surveillance cameras covering the property were turned off at the time of the incident. According to NPR's Dana Temple-Raston, who spoke with the FBI Special Agent Teresa Carlson, quote, "There was no video in the temple itself. Apparently, their surveillance camera wasn't on. Why the camera was turned off during what one would expect to be the temple's busiest time, a religious service on a Sunday, has not been explained. The absence of video footage of the event makes it impossible to corroborate multiple eyewitness accounts attesting to the fact that more than one individual carried out the shootings." Speaking with the Associated Press, an eyewitness stated between 10 and 10:30 a.m. in the morning, 4 white males who were dressed darkly, meaning dressed in all black clothing, came in and opened fire on our congregation. Temple member Amardeep Kalika, whose mother and father were injured victims in the shooting, also told WISN that his parents said there were multiple shooters, multiple people, and that the attack was very well coordinated. Kalika added that his father saw multiple shooters of Caucasian descent. That's from his father. Multiple shooters of Caucasian descent. We already know it's, according to the mainstream media, that it's only one guy. One guy, one lone Nazi nut, and, if he is just a Nazi nut, that went, it's hard to explain. I mean, I'm not an insane psychopathic murderer, so I can't get behind the logic circuits of such a person. But let me just go on with the article. An ITN news report also quoted the niece of one of the temple members who said, and this is her quote, "An unknown number of gunmen had walked into the kitchen of the Sikh temple and opened fire." That's another eyewitness report there. I mean, the temple was filled with people, so of course you're going to get eyewitness reports. Another man at the scene told Sky News, "I think they had multiple shooters." Well, he says he thinks. In addition, the chairman of the temple stated that the day before the attack, there were a few suspicious men seen on temple premises. Again, clearly suggesting the involvement of more than one person. Yeah, that's right. There's been reports that the day before this instance, there was one report of a police cars showing up and then driving away. That could just be coincidence. It could be. A lot of things could be coincidence. I mean, as an investigative journalist, all journalists out there are attempting to dig deeper. You can't really find the story by just going, yeah, somebody said this, somebody said that. That's good enough. Let's just throw it on the media. We don't need to know more. I could understand, too, why if there were police investigations, why maybe they would want to keep some of the facts secret. Maybe it's crucial or pertinent to their investigation. And yet, the question comes into play, why is the media so adamant about just one guy, a lone Nazi nut, and nobody else was implicated? I mean, we have eyewitness accounts here. We, meaning the media that interviews these people. Actually, I've seen them on video. At least one guy was caught on video saying, yes, multiple guys. He's the one that reported 4 men entering into the temple dressed in dark clothing. Well, in addition, the chairman of the temple stated the day before the attack, there were a few suspicious men seen on temple premises. Well, I suppose. Although speculation has centered around alleged shooter Wade Michael Page and his ties to white supremacists, a definitive motive for the massacre has yet to be established. After initially claiming Page was killed by a police officer, authorities now assert that he shot himself in the head. Well, we can't even get that part of the story right. There's too many puzzle pieces missing. It's just, Well, hey, it makes our job a little harder, and we need to work harder. Page's racist views were likely developed during his stint in the Army at Fort Bragg between 1992 to 1998, during which time he was a member of the Psychological Operations Unit. So from 92 to 98, he was in the military, and he was a member of PSYOPs, Psychological... you know what? I should just take a break. I should come back and I should read what PSYOPs is. That's exactly what I'm going to do, because we're just going to go to Wikipedia, and I'm typing it in right now. PSYOPs, boom. Oh, well. All right, internet problems, but I'll fix that. Let me take a commercial break. I'm Michael Wordsworth. You're listening to Breaking Down the News today. We're covering a little bit about the Sikh temple. And then we're going to have Kate come in. She's got some interesting facts about everything from milk, water, air, animals, and her specialty, trees and plants. And that's a very good thing. I love trees and plants. All right, we'll be right back.
You're listening to RiverWestRadio.com. When you're out on the road, you want to know them tires are touching the pavement. You want rubber to concrete. When you're out there, you want to drive knowing that you're in control of the wheel. But what about your government? Don't you think your government should have its reality check and the rubber hit the pavement? What's going to put the brakes on the rampant fiscal spending, budget problems? It's not the voter, it's not the constituents, it won't be the leaders. The problem ain't the leaders, it's the followers. Get behind the wheel, America. The kitchen is the heart of the home, but at Monsanto, we're a megalithic agricultural group attempting to destroy farmers all across your country. We bring you horrible foods that attack your stomach lining, DNA, give you kidney and liver failure. Monsanto, bringing Franken foods to your family at home. Don't you just hate us? Say no to GMO.
And now it is time to make light of the issues.
The world doesn't make sense. It's never going to make sense. Take abortion, for example. Just another one of those issues that we're always being preoccupied with. But isn't the solution pretty much evident? Let's just make a law legalizing abortion. That's right, just legalize abortion. And in how many generations will it take before those who decided to kill their babies don't have enough people to populate versus those who decided to keep and raise their babies? Doesn't the problem just solve itself? You're listening to RiverWestRadio.com.
And now, live from River West Radio, the man with Wordsworth listening to, your host, Michael Wordsworth.
Indeed. We are back. And as promised, I will read from you the section from Wikipedia on psychological warfare. I feel this is important because a lot of people in the mainstream media have been reporting that Wade Michael Page was in the military. It's been confirmed 6 years, 92 to 98. What has not been confirmed or spoken often of is that this alleged killer who killed himself, or maybe didn't, maybe the police killed him. Geez, we just don't know. It's really hard to report on a news article when you can't even get the media to report all the facts. Well, I wanted to read to you what psychological warfare is. It's known as PSYOPs. It's the basic aspects of modern psychological operations, and they've been known by many other names or terms, including PSYOPs, political warfare, hearts and minds, and propaganda. I guess could you call it the Ministry of Propaganda? Various techniques are used by any set of groups and aim to influence the target audience's value systems, belief systems, emotions, motives, reasoning, or behavior. It is used to induce confessions or reinforce attitudes and behaviors favorable to the originator's objectives, and are sometimes combined with black operations or false flag tactics. Target audiences can be governments, organizations, groups, and individuals. In propaganda, the formation of men's attitudes, according to Jacques Ellul, it's French, I have problems with that, discusses psychological warfare as a common peace policy. Practice between nations is a form of indirect aggression in place of military aggression. Well, I just wanted to cover that. I mean, basically what you have here is a division of the military. I guess the Nazis call it Ministry of Propaganda, but propaganda has come so far. The weapons in PSYOPs are psychological, and only in the fact they produce, and not because of the weapons themselves. We don't, I'm not talking about psychic energy weapons, I wish. Actually, let me read some of the examples. In past history, when PSYOPs were used, you got Cyrus the Great. Although the first great king of the Achaemenid Empire was known as a conqueror, he was also remembered for his tolerance towards those he defeated. To ensure that the new conquered peoples did not revolt, Cyrus the Great showed respect to their customs and allowed them to continue to practice their religions. He also freed 40,000 Jewish slaves in Babylon, sent them back to Judah, and funded the building of a new temple in Jerusalem, which gave him the title Liberator and Messiah in the Old Testament. Cyrus is also known for the creation of his new imperial guards, the Immortals as he called them. Notably, in mid-battle, they removed the dead from the battlefield, so whether the battle is won or lost, their enemies never truly saw a dead immortal. So no immortal appeared to have died, hence the name. It's pretty good, eh? In mid-battle, he removes the dead bodies from the battlefield. I mean, just so that there would be, and like, look, we're immortal. Nobody died. Yay! According to ancient historians such as Herodotus, they have been said at times to wear a thin tiara over their face in order to give them a faceless, menacing look, coupled with their deathless reputation. Well, that's kind of a good example, actually. I found that interesting either way, but that's one of the earlier known instances of PSYOPs. Here, this one from Alexander the Great. Although not always accredited as the first practitioner of psychological warfare, Alexander the Great undoubtedly showed himself to be effective in swaying the mindsets of the populaces that were conquered in his campaigns. The fact is evident upon study and research into the remaining historical records regarding the terms of peace from the reign of Alexander of Macedonia. Though few records exist, they indicate that Alexander, or at the very least his advisors, were very shrewd negotiators and well-versed in achieving diplomacy. To keep the new Macedonian state, an assortment of powerful Greek tribes, from revolting against their leader, Alexander the Great left some of his men behind in each city to introduce Greek culture, control it, oppress the dissident views, and interbreed. Alexander paid his soldiers to marry non-Greek women. He wanted to assimilate people of all nations. The Mongols, Genghis Khan, leader of the Mongols in the 13th century AD, united his people to eventually create the largest contiguous empire in the human history. Defeating the will of the enemy was the top priority. Before attacking a settlement, the Mongol generals demanded submission to the Khan and threatened the initial villages with complete destruction if they refused to surrender. After winning the battle, the Mongol generals filled their threats and massacred the survivors. Examples include the destruction of the nations of Kiev and Khwarezm. Very difficult to pronounce that in English. Consequently, tales of the encroaching horde spread to the next villages and created an aura of insecurity that undermined the possibility of future resistance. Subsequent nations were much more likely to surrender to the Mongols without fighting. Often this, as much as the Mongols' tactical prowess, secured quick Mongol victories. Genghis Khan also employed tactics that made his numbers seem greater than they actually were. During night operations, he ordered each soldier to light 3 torches at dusk to give the illusion of an overwhelming army and deceive and intimidate enemy scouts. He also sometimes had objects tied to the tails of his horses, so that riding on open and dry fields raised a cloud of dust that gave the enemy the impression of great numbers. His soldiers used arrows, specially notched to whistle, as they flew through the air, creating a terrifying noise. The Mongols also employed other gruesome terror tactics to weaken the will to resist. One infamous incident occurred during Tamerlane's Indian campaign. Tamerlane, an heir to the Mongol martial tradition, built a pyramid of 90,000 human heads in front of the walls of Delhi to convince them to surrender. Oh boy, I almost hated reading that, but this is ancient history. We're talking 13th century AD. These are psychological operations that have been used in the past. I'm reading them today to help my listening audience understand something about what goes on in psychological warfare today, and to relate it to the Sikh temple shooting that Wade Michael Page was actually a member of the Army's, our own United States Army's, PSYOP division for 6 years. What I'm reading here historically I wanted to say that it's mild in comparison to what they do today, but then, now that I just read the Mongols under Tamerlane, hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. It could be Tamerlane, I'm not sure, but who knows? We're speaking in English here, so. Built a pyramid of 90,000 human heads in the front of the walls of Delhi. I guess that would scare somebody. Where do you get 90,000 human heads? Just collecting them alone would have to be a monumental task and something that's quite gruesome, but I don't know, maybe they looked at it differently back then. Other tactics included firing severed human heads from catapults into enemy lines and over city walls to frighten enemy soldiers and citizens and spread diseases in the close confines of a besieged city. The results were thus not only psychological, since in 1347, the Mongols under Janabeg catapulted corpses infected with plague into the trading city of Kaffa in Crimea, making it one of the first known uses of biological warfare. In the Spanish Civil War, moving on a few centuries later here, after the beginning of the Spanish Civil War, the nationalist general Queipo de Llano started broadcasting transmissions to be heard by Republican zone listeners. Over loudspeakers, he could be heard saying, "Red soldiers abandon arms. Franco forgives and redeems. Follow the example set by your comrades who have joined our ranks. Only then will you achieve victory, happiness at home, and peace in your heart." That's pretty much, that's that definition of during the Spanish Civil War. That's something that, I'd like to think would be the nicer version of PSYOPs, where you just simply get on a speaker and you say, "Give up. We'll forgive you. Join our comrades." Unfortunately, in the Vietnam War, we had, what was her name? Tokyo Rose? I'm pretty sure, yeah, that was Vietnam. I'm sure there was a Tokyo Rose for Korea, but I can't think of that off the top of my head. But Tokyo Rose, she played music that the GIs would want to listen to, and then in the middle of that, tell them how depressing their pointless mission is, and how they miss their families at home, and that they should just give up, and hey, that could be very discouraging when you're sitting on a battlefield listening to that. And then we got you guys want to hear the PSYOPs done in World War II? One of the first leaders to gain fanatical support through the use of microphone technology was Germany's Adolf Hitler, by first creating a speaking environment designed by Joseph Goebbels. He was able to exaggerate his presence to make him seem messianic, like a messiah. Hitler also coupled with the resonating projections of his orations for effect. Actually, I'm just going to tell you, if you've ever checked out videos, the PSYOP application, Hitler made it a big event. People would gather at nights. It was a very bonding time for the German people to gather like this. I mean, in numbers and strength, and to show their solidarity. And the overall effect was a psychological drive towards unification and the cause of the war. All right, I'm Michael Wordsworth. When we come back, we're going to read several things. We've got... we just read about how the surveillance cameras were turned off in the Sikh temple during the day of the shooting. What's the point of having surveillance cameras, honestly, if that's the case? The one time they needed them, right? Geez, it's amazing. I mean, just it's coincidences like that that just throw me off. Then we're going to read about Google's going to pay a $22.5 million fine over privacy practices. That ought to be pretty interesting, actually. What else do we got coming up here? The U.S. Postal Service loses $5.2 billion, warns of low cash. That's not a good thing. What else do we got? Potassium iodide tablets being distributed to Pennsylvania residents living near nuclear power plants. Ooh, you got to ask right off the bat why. I mean, I do. What else do we got here? Cops strip search mom, forcibly pull... Oh, I can't even read this, but I'm going to. It's in the news. Cops strip search mother and forcibly pull tampon out of her for maybe rolling... This is why. This is what the harassment was for. Rolling through a stop sign. Oh, man. I'm not even going to read that full article. I just wanted to... Every now and then I'll read... and then the Gulf state, we're going to talk about the 10 facts about Saudi Arabia. That ought to be educational. In fact, I should grab that as soon as I come back. Why don't we do that? Talking about the Gulf state despots. A despot is a tyrant, an evil ruler that oppresses his people. And in conjunction to that, we're going to discuss 10 facts about Saudi Arabia. Okay, I am Michael Wordsworth. This is Breaking Down the News. Thanks for joining us on this Friday edition. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
You're listening to RiverWestRadio.com. Every day, people wake up all over the world and hear commercials like this one, with soft music and a soothing announcer's voice telling you how great some big corporation's new technology will help you and your family. But it is important to remember, these companies could give a flying fuck about you or your family. That's why Breaking Down the News has made this commercial to counter their commercials. Don't be fooled by them. The battle is to gain control of your mind through media propaganda. Just say no to evil corporations and their slick computer graphics designed to brainwash viewers. Vote no with your dollars, and we will regain the health of our nation, one consumer at a time.
And now, live from River West Radio, the man with Wordsworth listening to, your host, Michael Wordsworth.
We're back. All right. The Cooperation Council for the Arab States of the Gulf is known as GCC. It's comprised of 6 nations, and I'm going to read about them and educate the audience today. Hey, it's nothing wrong with getting a little bit more education regarding the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, the countries that we are dealing with. Nothing wrong with it. So you've got the Cooperation Council for the Arab States of the Gulf, known as the GCC. It's comprised of 6 nations: Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, United Arab Emirates, and Oman. In principle, Kuwait and Bahrain are considered constitutional monarchs. In practice, all 6 are despotic autocracies with Saudi Arabia. Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, and Oman overtly absolute monarchs. They have complete control. Devoid of even a feigned semblance of representative government, these regimes brutally repress not only their own subjects, but play active roles in repressing the people of other nations. both on their borders and well beyond them. Saudi Arabia and Qatar are playing an active role in crushing dissent in neighboring Bahrain. This is very important, actually. An opaque uprising obscured by a lack of Western media coverage, and that's why we're reporting this here, because there's been an opaque uprising obscured by a lack of media coverage. Apparently the result of Western press houses conveniently ignoring unrest, targeting governments linked to Western interests, while intentionally subverting nations opposed to Western interests. You know, it's interesting. I rode a taxi a couple days ago, and not to sound cliche, but the taxi driver was actually from Saudi Arabia. I only say not to be cliche because, I mean, there are a lot of, at least in Milwaukee, there's a lot of what people would describe as Middle Eastern people from driving taxis. So, and I'm sure there's a good percentage of them in pretty much all the cities. So anyhow, before I digress any further and possibly stick my foot in my mouth, let me just continue with this. What we got a situation here is you've got, okay, the absolute monarchs are Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, and Oman. Well, when I was talking to this guy, he was from Saudi Arabia. He was Arabian. And he said, yes, the people do not like the leaders there. They do not. See, I asked him about Syria. I said, well, how do they feel about Syria? And he was of the opinion that Bashar al-Assad was actually a tyrant, and it's definitely not a representative government. But I was talking to him about, well, I mean, don't the people don't anybody support him? And he said no. And then I pointed out the fact that, well, look, come on, I mean, Bashar al-Assad, I'm not saying he's a good guy or anything like that, but he is Shia. There's two factions of Muslim faith. You've got the Shia, spelled Shiite in English. Then you've got the Sunni. In Iraq, the Sunni Baathists were in power, and you had a Shiite majority surrounding them. Well, now what you've got here is the reverse situation of Iraq. In Syria, Bashar al-Assad is Shiite, and the Shiites are they're largely allied with Iran, with Persia, old Persia. And in Syria, unfortunately, you have a high percentage of Sunni Muslims, and I say that unfortunately in the sense that, well, they're apparently not getting along well together. I don't know if it's the secular division. Not the secular, the factional division between them, that's the issue. But, I mean, generally, yeah, if one ruler is Shiite and he's doing anything oppressive to the Sunni in the area, which, as I understand it, almost comprise the majority in Syria, well, the Sunni are going to revolt. They're not going to be happy. Well, we're talking about the Gulf Coast Coalition. The collective efforts of the GCC's regime have now torn North Africa's nation of Libya apart, leaving it under control of roving bands of NATO and GCC armed and funded genocidal sectarian militants, with the Tripoli government dominated by Western proxies. A similar operation is now underway in Syria, also fully funded, armed, and directed by the GCC and its Western minders. The term pro-democracy has been disingenuously used to describe the militant legions that very undemocratic nations like Saudi Arabia and Qatar are underwriting. Clearly, even at face value, this is an untenable narrative. Under closer scrutiny, it unravels further, exposing a criminal, murderously violent, terroristic conspiracy of vast international proportions. Of the Gulf states that in the coalition, perhaps the most two prominent members are Saudi Arabia and Qatar, with the House of Saud leading and the Qataris playing a supporting role, mainly in terms of propaganda via state-owned Al Jazeera, by hosting what they call defectors and hosting the regional headquarters of Western corporate financier-funded think tanks like the Brookings Institute Doho Center. Well, when I come back, I'm going to read 10 facts regarding Saudi Arabia. And in the attempt to educate us all, myself included, you can't go over this stuff enough. My brain can only handle so much, and I'm sure you feel the same way. You sometimes take in so much information in a day. It's like it goes in one ear and just falls out the other. I know so much now, I can't even remember what I know. I'm sure it's true for any of you that live long enough as time goes by. It's just, how can you keep it in the old noggin? It's very not easy. I'm Michael Wordsworth. You're listening to Breaking Down the News on riverwestradio.com. We'll be right back to read facts about Saudi Arabia.
You're listening to riverwestradio.com. Are you tired of commercials always telling you that you're tired? When you know you're tired because you wake up early and go to bed late, and every moment in between is spent trying to figure out how you're going to make the next dollar. Well, you're not alone. Millions of Americans are walking around in a sleep-deprived, zombie-like state, amplified by psych meds and pharmaceuticals found in their drinking water. So just be glad you're not one of them, unless you are. In which case, I'm sorry you had to hear this. But wait, there's more. If we keep at this current pace, we will surely lose our democratic republic and soon be standing in food lines for the poisonous rations the new totalitarian government will hand out. Don't delay, get involved, get informed. Every day, people wake up all over the world and hear commercials like this one, with soft music and a soothing announcer's voice telling you how great some big corporation's new technology will help you and your family. But it is important to remember, these companies could give a flying fuck about you or your family. That's why Breaking Down the News has made this commercial to counter their commercials. Don't be fooled by them. The battle is to gain control of your mind through media propaganda. Just say no to evil corporations and their slick computer graphics designed to brainwash viewers. Vote no with your dollars, and we will regain the health of our nation, one consumer at a time.
We're back. This is Breaking Down the News. I am Michael Wordsworth, about ready to read 10 facts pertaining to Saudi Arabia in the attempt to educate myself and my listening audience. Nothing wrong with a little education. Fact number 1. I should read this like David Letterman or something like, and the number 1 fact, well, we're going in reverse order here. We're going to start with number 1 and work our way to 10, and I don't think there'll be much comedy involved in this. All right, let me get on to the facts. Saudi Arabia is so utterly autocratic, it is literally named after the ruling dynasty, the House of Saud, spelled S-A-U-D in English. Thus, it is Arabia of the House of Saud, or Saudi Arabia. So, pretty clear on that one. Fact number 2, to this day, Saudi Arabia carries out barbaric executions against both criminals and political enemies, including victims accused of sorcery and witchcraft. In the aptly named Chop Chop Square, located in the capital of Riyadh, where heads are literally chopped off by hooded swordsmen. Fact number 3, pertaining to Saudi Arabia. Women are banned from driving in Saudi Arabia. Most likely would also be banned from voting in national elections if such a phenomenon even occurred, which it does not, as Saudi Arabia is an absolute monarchy and its leaders are determined by heredity, not even the feigned pretense of elections. It's quite obvious it's a dictatorship, a single family in charge. There are local elections, however, in which women are not permitted to vote. That's not funny. I'm laughing because I'm thinking of our own country. Like, we took a long time before women were allowed to vote here in America. Essentially, if you can't vote, you're basically a second-class citizen with no means to actually contribute to the decision-making process of where do we go for here? What do we do? All right, continuing on with Saudi Arabia. Fact number 4. Saudi Arabia has been, and to this day, is the primary underwriter of the notorious international terror organization, Al-Qaeda. Wow, that's pretty heavy, hey? Saudi Arabia has been, and is to this day, the primary underwriter meaning they're funding, they're popping the money, they're providing the money. There we go. Trying to use a little colloquialism there, but providing the money of the notorious international terror organization Al-Qaeda. Now, if those of you who are listening out there do not know who Al-Qaeda is or what they are, you're probably right. Even those who claim to know what they are, you really have to study to discover where they were created, how they were started. Well, they were created along with Saudi Arabia's longtime ally, the United States. Money, weapons, and directives are laundered through the Saudis to maintain both plausible deniability for the Americans. See, we can't let anybody know that we're funding Al-Qaeda or that the CIA started them. Al-Qaeda, of course, is the big boogeyman that we're supposed to be afraid of. They're the convenient enemy that shows up whenever we have to sell some difficult foreign policy decision to the American public. We just go, Al-Qaeda, remember 911? Well, you remember 911. 14 guys from Saudi Arabia were said to have blown up the World Trade Center and attacked the Pentagon. And that's why we invaded Afghanistan and later invaded Iraq. I know, it doesn't make sense if you actually understand the region and the connections of these political parties. Saudi Arabia and Saddam Hussein of Iraq were not allies. So, very, very interesting. Saudi Arabia, fact number 5. Saudi Arabia maintains an extensive re-education program internationally to pervert the tenets of Islam as a means of keeping Al-Qaeda's ranks full and fueling. Wall Street and London's engineered clash of civilizations. Ooh, I should read that, actually. Sounds interesting. Fact number 6. Saudi Arabian corporate financier interests run by the royal family, the House of Saud, are tied directly to Wall Street and London via conglomerations like the U.S. Saudi Arabian Business Council and representation upon the J.P. Morgan International Council. Khalid Al-Falih of Saudi Aramco, amongst the highest valued companies on earth. Fact number 7. The alleged most notorious terrorist in modern history, Osama bin Laden, was the creation of U.S. Saudi machinations, with the bin Laden family to this day being a premier member of both Saudi and Western elitist circles. The multi-billion-dollar Saudi bin Laden Group is an active member of the U.S. Saudi Arabian Business Council and plays a central role in deciding bilateral foreign policy for the benefit of collective U.S. Saudi corporate financier and corresponding geopolitical interests. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? Osama bin Laden, now dead and dumped in the ocean. Some say he was dead along. His little nickname around here is Osama bin Dead a while. But not to get into that, we're going to stay on topic, talking about facts pertaining to Saudi Arabia. Fact number 8. The autocratic House of Saud maintains Al Arabiya, along with an extensive list of unsavory investors from across the GCC and its sphere of influence, including Lebanon's Hariri faction. Let's see if I pronounce that right. Hariri. It's spelled Hariri. Hariri. I'm not sure. Never heard that term spoken, at least. Well, it's a propaganda outlet masquerading as an objective journalistic organization. Working in tandem with state-owned Al Jazeera and Qatar, Occasionally admitted to be state media by the West, state media in Saudi Arabia actually means Saud family-owned propaganda. There you go. Fact number 9. Saudi Arabia has played an active role in the violent destabilization of governments around the world, including most recently Libya and Syria. The use of sectarian extremists indoctrinated at Saudi-funded faux mosques and madras, faux mosques being fake mosques. A mosque is a Muslim temple. For those of you that don't know that, armed and funded by Saudi cash, sectarian extremists use the standard method of operation for these destabilizations. In other words, what we're saying here with this fact is that Saudi Arabia has a hand. It has its hand in the Syrian destabilization, the Libya destabilization. What's in it for them? Well, it turns out that they're really just puppets of the West, aren't they? It's a good way to put it. And fact number 10. Saudi Arabia's brutally repressive internal security apparatus is a creation of U.S. advisors and operators. Wow. Its military, both covert and conventional, is also armed through astronomically large weapons sales, including a recent sale considered the largest in U.S. history. And these sales by its Wall Street and London allies. The atrocities committed by the despotic Saud regime are directly facilitated by U.S. advisors, operators, and arms. Saudi Arabia also hosts the U.S. military, a sizable force until it was spread out amongst the orbiting despotic regimes of Qatar, Bahrain, Oman, and the United Arab Emirates. Of course, not everyone in Saudi Arabia is a barbaric, treasonous, meddling despot. I am not suggesting that. Actually, the gentleman that I met in the taxi ride a couple days ago, he said he loved United States and he loved the Constitution. I said, yes, sir, we are in agreement there. It is by far the best political piece of paper ever drafted to protect the civil liberties and rights of individuals, not just in this country, but to set it as the hope and model for the rest of the world. This includes Saudi Arabia, but right now we're not mad at them. We're mad at Syria. That's the only people that we need to worry about. Saudi Arabia never gets blamed for anything. Why should it? Well, sounds to me like they have their problems. The key to breaking the self-imposed Western media blockade is for the alternative media to conduct the research and cover developments themselves. This includes reaching out to activists and reformers within Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and other GCC autocracies, and giving the people the platform denied to them by the corporate-funded Western media. Well, there you go. I hope that was educational for you. We're going to read a couple more articles. When we come back, we're going to do an interview with Kate here. And it's going to be lighthearted, and we're going to talk about good things. Milk, food, farmland, water, waterways. Good stuff. I'm Michael Wordsworth. We'll be right back.
You're listening to RiverWestRadio.com. When you're out on the road, you want to know them tires are touching the pavement. You want rubber to concrete. When you're out there, you want to drive knowing that you're in control of the wheel. Well, what about your government? Don't you think your government should have its reality check and the rubber hit the pavement? What's going to put the brakes on the rampant fiscal spending, budget problems? It's not the voter, it's not the constituents, it won't be the leaders. The problem ain't the leaders, it's the followers. Get behind the wheel, America. This is a special Breaking Down the News celebrity call-in segment where we have known political figures call in and conduct an interview. Today's guest, he was once the National Security Advisor under Nixon during the Vietnam War era and later Secretary of State. He's probably the most prominent unindicted war criminal roaming around today. I'd like to bring onto the show Mr. The Bloodstains Won't Come Off My Hands no matter how hard I scrub them, Kissinger. Welcome to the show, you evil bloodthirsty monster.
Good afternoon, Michael. Thank you for having me on your show.
Now, you've managed to really piss off a lot of people during your long career as a warmonger hiding in sheep's clothing.
I really have. If I had a conscience, this would really bother me. The illegal, we do immediately. The unconstitutional takes a little longer.
I'm not sure what the hell that means, but you were once a big man in foreign affairs throughout the world, and I bet it's hard to get on anyone's show these days, since people have been rightfully charging you as a war criminal.
The nice thing about being a celebrity is that if you bore people, they think it's your fault. Actually, I make a few public appearances now and then. I was recently honored at the conference on Indochina.
What?
I know. It is ironic, isn't it?
Wait. Let me get this straight. You, the man who, along with Richard Holbrooke, was part of the team in the Nixon White House, helping to craft the Vietnam policy, including Operation Phoenix, which saw the assassination of South Vietnamese political and religious leaders. You are attending this conference.
A country that demands moral perfection in its foreign policy will achieve neither perfection nor security.
But you, Mr. The Bloodstains Won't Come Off My Hands no matter how hard I scrub them, Kissinger, authorized the war to bleed over into Cambodia. The terrible consequence was the eventual rise of Pol Pot and the Cambodian killing fields, and now they invite you to a conference on Indochina hosted by Hillary Clinton?
Imagine my chagrin. Ha 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 ha. Hillary Clinton had to introduce me, which wasn't easy, given her rude comments about me prior to the conference.
Oh, come on. She was just probably covering her own tush. You know she worships at the same altar of death that you do.
Perhaps, but it was ironic that she had to introduce me. Ha ha ha.
Now, in recent years, Mr. The Bloodstains Won't Come Off My Hands no matter how hard I scrub them, Kissinger, you have come under fire for private comments once made to Nixon during the Bangladesh-Pakistani war, in which you described the then Indian Prime Minister Indira Gandhi as a, quote, bitch and a witch.
I regret that now.
What, saying that?
No, getting caught saying that. I regret that now.
You also said the Indians are bastards shortly before the war.
I did. What are you going to do, you know?
It's kind of surreal with the coup attempt in Ecuador that this harkens back to your policies in Latin America, which saw the overthrow and murder of Salvador Allende in Chile, and your prompting of Operation Condor in the Plan Mercurio, which oversaw the kidnapping of peoples in Latin American countries, leftist activists. These people were disappeared under Operation Condor, and now we have Hillary Clinton praising you for this evil well done.
It's not a matter of what is true that counts, but a matter of what is perceived to be true.
Do you see a parallel between Vietnam and Afghanistan today?
The war profits must flow unabated. Military men are just dumb, stupid animals to be used as pawns in foreign policy.
I can't believe you just said that.
Well, I said it before, and I will say it again. Here, I will say it again right now. Military men are just dumb, stupid animals to be used as pawns in foreign policy.
Mr. Kissinger, you are indeed a madman. It is hard to believe that you played such a pivotal role in our country's foreign policy for decades, and that is all the time I will lend to your madness. You're out of here.
It was a pleasure being on your show, Michael. Good day.
And good riddance. I am Michael Wordsworth, having just interviewed Henry, the bloodstains won't come off my hands no matter how hard I scrub them, Kissinger. Back in a moment. All opinions and quotations in no way represent River West Radio and are the sole responsibility of the producer, guests, and callers. River West Radio is not liable for any legal issues arising from the content of this program. The FBI headquarters is a huge modern building in the middle of downtown. Cars and trucks drive past the front entrance on this very active street, and these doors will lead us to the elevators that will take us to the office of Deputy Director Hank Polarank.
Welcome to the FBI headquarters. Can I help you?
Yes, I have an appointment with Deputy Director Polarank.
And your name is?
Michael Wordsworth from RiverWestRadios.com, breaking down the news show.
Michael who? No.
The
sorry,
staff
you don't
at the
understand
FBI
what
was
I'm presenting here.
professional
Are you sure
and
you have the right
courteous
one?
as they greeted me, and after a few security complications were smoothed out, I was soon able to get in to do my interview. Michael Wordsworth from Breaking Down the News.
Hey, come on in, take a seat.
And it was an interesting interview. How many terrorist plots has the FBI foiled in the last few years?
We've been busy, very busy with ongoing investigations. It's hard to say off the top of my head. 10, maybe 12?
And out of those 10 or 12 incidents, how many of those were not terrorist plots instigated by the FBI?
None actually.
Not one.
Well, the underwear bomber, that wasn't us.
But it came to light that the underwear bomber was forced onto the plane by a well-dressed man, and he didn't go through security. That wasn't the FBI.
No. Might have been Secret Service. I think they handled that one.
I'd like to quote an article from the New York Times. Can I?
Sure, go ahead.
This is an article by David K. Shipler, published April 29, 2012, and I quote, "But all these dramas were facilitated by the FBI, whose undercover agents and informers posed as terrorists offering a dummy missile, fake C4 explosives, a disarmed suicide vest, and rudimentary training. Suspects naively played their parts until they were arrested. When an Oregon college student, Mohammed Osman Mohammed, thought of using a car bomb to attack a festive Christmas tree lighting ceremony in Portland, the FBI provided a van loaded with 55-gallon drums of inert material, harmless blasting caps, a detonator cord, and a gallon of diesel fuel to make the van smell flammable. An undercover FBI agent even did the driving, with Mr. Muhammad in the passenger seat. To trigger the bomb, the student punched a number into a cell phone and got no boom, only a bust. What do you say to that?"
What's your point?
My point is it sounds like we really don't have a terrorism problem in America beyond those plots the FBI makes up itself.
How did you get in here? Agent Smith?
Be right in. What is it, sir? Hey, wait. How did you get in here? I don't believe this. He doesn't have clearance, sir. You'll have to come with me.
He doesn't have clearance? How did he get past you?
He snuck in here when I went to pay for the pizza delivery. I was there for a while. I wanted exact change.
Okay, hey, thanks for the interview. That's all I need now.
Sir, stop. Come back here.
He doesn't have clearance?
Thank you. Talk soon. You guys take care.
Security, we have a gate jumper headed for the elevators.
And whereas this interview did not yield all the answers I wanted, I did get to state my point. And as I was leaving the FBI building, I had the realization that making my point was worth the trip. Are you tired of commercials always telling you that you're tired when you know you're tired because you wake up early and go to bed late and every moment in between is spent trying to figure out how you're going to make the next dollar? Well, you're not alone. Millions of Americans are walking around in a sleep-deprived, zombie-like state amplified by psych meds and pharmaceuticals found in the drinking water. So just be glad you're not one of them, unless you are, in which case I'm sorry you had to hear this. But wait, there's more. If we keep at this current pace, we will surely lose our democratic republic and soon be standing in food lines for the poisonous rations the new totalitarian government will hand out. Don't delay, get involved, get informed. The kitchen is the heart of the home, but at Monsanto, we're a megalithic agricultural group attempting to destroy farmers all across your country. We bring you horrible foods that attack your stomach lining, DNA, give you kidney and liver failure. Monsanto, bringing Franken foods to your family at home. Don't you just hate us? Say no to GMO.
And now it is time to make light of the issues.
War criminals. I mean, we used to hunt down war criminals, put them on trial, and have them executed. Today, you have so many war criminals running around today. You've got Kissinger, George Bush, Barack Obama. All these guys should be put on trial. George Bush can't even go to Switzerland anymore. I'm telling you, they wanted to arrest him. But in America, it's just, yeah. You're listening to RiverWestRadio.com. Are you tired of commercials always telling you that you're tired when you know you're tired because you wake up early and go to bed late and every moment in between is spent trying to figure out how you're going to make the next dollar? Well, you're not alone. Millions of Americans are walking around in a sleep-deprived, zombie-like state amplified by psych meds and pharmaceuticals found in the drinking water. So just be glad you're not one of them, unless you are, in which case I'm sorry you had to hear this. But wait, there's more. If we keep at this current pace, we will surely lose our democratic republic and soon be standing in food lines for the poisonous rations the new totalitarian government will hand out. Don't delay, get involved, get informed.
And now it is time to make light of the issues.
Economists, that's right, economists. You know they're about the most useless thing. They're paid to be wrong 2/3 of the time. And I'm telling you, our economy, they keep telling us our economy is getting better, right? Right? I mean, what a joke. It's like Hitler reporting back to the German people that he's winning the war. Isn't it? I mean, just look at the jobs market right now. It's just ridiculous, huh? We must be having a jobless recovery. A jobless recovery. You're listening to River West Radio. When you're out on the road, you want to know them tires are touching the pavement. You want rubber to concrete. When you're out there, you want to drive knowing that you're in control of the wheel. But what about your government? Don't you think your government should have its reality check and the rubber hit the pavement? What's going to put the brakes on the rampant fiscal spending, budget problems? It's not the voter, it's not the constituents, it won't be the leaders. The problem ain't the leaders, it's the followers. Get behind the wheel, America. Every day, people wake up all over the world and hear commercials like this one. with soft music and a soothing announcer's voice telling you how great some big corporation's new technology will help you and your family. But it is important to remember, these companies could give a flying fuck about you or your family. That's why Breaking Down the News has made this commercial to counter their commercials. Don't be fooled by them. The battle is to gain control of your mind through media propaganda. Just say no to evil corporations and their slick computer graphics designed to brainwash viewers. Vote no with your dollars, and we will regain the health of our nation, one consumer at a time. Once again, the Bilderberg meeting is happening today in Chantilly, Virginia, where many of Europe's top thinkers and technocrats are gathering in secret to plan the global economy for the next 12 months. To get a deeper view of this, Breaking Down the News has met with David Rockefeller in Virginia. Mr. Rockefeller, thank you for joining us.
Yes, of course. I'm sure this is a big moment in your pathetic life as a news talk show host.
Now, do you prefer that I call you Evil or just Mr. Rockefeller or David Evil Rockefeller?
Ooh, that sounds good, yes. Call me David Evil Rockefeller. I like the sound of that.
Very well, Mr. Evil Rockefeller. Now, Bilderberg, the not-so-secret meeting taking place this week...
Now, hold on there a second. We are grateful to the Washington Post, Time Magazine, and other great publications whose directors have attended our meetings and respected their promises of discretion for almost 40 years. But now, since the New York Times betrayed me, I would like to retract my praise for the cowardly media outlets that leaked our little get-togethers to the mainstream. Boo! Hiss! Hiss! It would have been impossible for us to develop our plan for the world if we had been subjected to the lights of publicity during those years. But the world is more sophisticated and prepared to march toward a world government. The supranational sovereignty of an intellectual elite and world bankers is surely preferable to the national auto-determination practiced in past centuries.
But Mr. Evil...
That's David Evil Rockefeller to you.
My apologies.
No, you should get it right. You're a reporter for Lucifer's sake.
Pardon me, David Evil Rockefeller.
That's better. Normally, we hate to be forced out of the shadows, but some fat bastard keeps blowing a bullhorn at my hotel room all weekend, shouting, "The answer to 1984 is 1776," or something like that. I mean, what the Hades does that mean? Well, this unruly blowhard has got the people all up in arms.
Well, yes, the people are revolting.
They most certainly are.
Pardon?
The people, yes, they are most revolting.
No, I meant the people are revolting against these secret meetings taking place now that the public has become aware of them.
Oh, that. Well, of course, but they don't pay attention. They don't listen. Most don't even know who I am or what I do.
That isn't true. Not of the young people these days. They don't see much of a future ahead of them because of men like you and the Bilderberg attendees. The younger generations are starting to really pay attention.
Ah, but that is exactly why I created Justin Bieber. Made him out of some spare parts I had laying around.
I would still say the tide is turning and the people are waking up to your corrupt technocratic system.
This present window of opportunity, during which a truly peaceful and independent world order might be built, will not be open for long. We are on the verge of a global transformation. All we need is the right major crisis, and the nations will accept the new world order.
All right, calm down, calm down. At this year's meeting of the Bilderbergers, you've got some big-time European heavyweights there. Dr. Joseph Ackerman, Angela Merkel, Herman Van Rompuy, all meeting with you to figure out what to do with the economy for the next 12 months. Now, if Greece is to leave the Eurozone, the rumor is that the Bilderbergs are panicking.
I don't think Greece is going to leave the euro. Germany doesn't want it to leave the euro, and Greece signed off on this memorandum with Troika, as it's called, which is effectively turning their sovereignty over to outside forces, and it's up to Germany, not the Greek people. They lost their sovereignty. I don't see that happening. It's not up to them. It's not their choice. Germany wants to keep Greece, to keep the euro cheap. If it wasn't for Greece, the Deutschmark would trade like the Swiss franc. It would be 20 or 30% higher, and their whole export model would crumble. Right now, Germany is making it out like bandits. They're making money the old-fashioned way.
By earning it?
No, by stealing it. Since the reunification of Germany, something that wouldn't have happened without the euro, Germany has become a superpower once again.
Basically, it's a leveraged buyout. All the assets of Greece are being taken by outsiders. And those are good income-producing assets like shipping, tourism, lotteries.
You are forgetting the gold mines. Don't forget the gold mines.
Right, gold mines. Those were privatized and sold off, correct?
Yes, approximately 111 tons of gold. I'm going to melt it all down and make little figurines of Justin Bieber that the kids can pray to.
But the IMF is bankrupt and they're lending money to Greece? They had to borrow trillions to execute a leveraged buyout.
Ah, but the real trick is getting the Greeks to sign on to this debt. Get it? We borrow the money to lend to them and then take over their sovereignty as we buy out their assets. It's brilliant, simply brilliant.
And then those assets go back to the IMF creditors.
They want the fees. Christine Lagarde says, just give me the fees. Give me my salary and you can rob the Greeks blind for all I care.
Evil, truly evil.
That is why I am called David Evil Rockefeller.
So it's like Mitt Romney when he was at Bain Capital. They just look for small companies and cut them. And in a like manner, Greece is just a small country that you can seize with a hostile takeover.
It is a Jimmy Goldsmith model, done on a bigger scale. Same thing. You pledge the assets of a country like Greece to secure loans to take over the country. Sell the assets, keep the difference, make lots of money. The people lose their sovereignty, their jobs, and I get to add another platinum-covered toilet in my horse stable.
So these Bilderberg meetings are a great way for you and the world's leaders to meet behind the scenes with no transparency and just basically decide the fate of any given economy.
Well, yes, and up until now it was a secret, but no matter. It was no coincidence that we took Ireland, Greece, Portugal, and then Spain in that order. This year, the big question is, where do we go next? France? Maybe UK is an interesting choice. It's similar to how you peasants buy houses, but we get entire countries for pennies on the dollar, you see.
The IMF, since the 60s, has preyed on Africa, then South America, then Southeast Asia.
Yes, well, while America was obsessed with Iraq, we were very busy taking over those regions.
But China threw you a curveball. They had a different model.
Well, China did good business, and that is inconsistent with Bilderberger policy. However, the U.S. can't really tangle with China because China is now the U.S. biggest creditor, and the whole thing is a sticky situation.
I would like to read you a quote from Bill Moyers about you. May I?
Ooh, yes. If it's about me, Mommy always talked about me, and I liked it. Talk about me, talk about me.
David Evil Rockefeller is the most conspicuous representative today of the ruling class, a multinational fraternity of men who shaped the global economy and managed the flow of its capital. Rockefeller was born into it, and he has made the most of it. But some critics see a vast international conspiracy he considers a circumstance of life and just another day's work. In the world of David Rockefeller, it's hard to tell where business ends and politics begins.
It is. It really is. Some days I wonder how history will look back on my takeover of the United States, and they will ask that very question and just don't know how I would answer even now.
So you admit that you want to take over the United States?
For more than a century, ideological extremists at either end of the political spectrum have seized upon well-publicized incidents, such as my encounter with Castro, to attack the Rockefeller family for inordinate influence they claim we wield over American political and economic institutions. Some even believe we are part of a secret cabal working against the best interests of the United States, characterizing my family and me as internationalists and of conspiring with others around the world to build a more integrated global political and economic structure, one world, if you will. If that's the charge, I stand guilty, and I'm proud of it.
Wait, didn't you write that in your personal memoirs?
Ooh, you're a smart one, Mr. Wordsworth.
Well, thank you, I guess.
No, I hate that. Hate it. The second we gain control of America, people like you will have to go. And by go, I mean disappeared with black hoods over your heads. Now that is scary. You should be scared. Very scared.
I am not afraid.
Oh, you will be. You will be.
This has been an exclusive interview with David Eagle Rockefeller in Chantilly, Virginia. I'm Michael Wordsworth. Back in a moment.
Drug scarcity hits Medicaid as states limit spending. When it comes to getting some honesty from the Obama administration regarding the Affordable Care Act, known as Obamacare, a good rule of thumb is to believe the opposite of what the president and his echo chamber have to say about it. Since before this monstrosity was passed, astute researchers poring over the more than 2,100 pages of regulations and provisions contained in the bill. Apparently, they didn't take Nancy Pelosi's advice to wait until the bill was passed to see what was actually in it. Anyhow, they made certain claims about it were refuted by the administration, all of which so far have turned out to be true. Opponents of the measure said it cuts Medicaid spending. The administration said it didn't. Well, it does. Opponents of the measure said it would raise taxes by billions of dollars. The administration said it didn't. Well, it does. Opponents of the measure said it would raise insurance premiums. The administration said it wouldn't. Well, again, it does, by an average of $2,100 per household per year. President Obama said repeatedly that if you like your current health insurance, you'll get to keep it. Now we're finding out that scores of employers will be dropping employee coverage because, you guessed it, the law creates an increase in insurance rates. An increase in the rates themselves. And perhaps the most controversial of the opposition objections, predictions as they are, is that the measure would lead to health care rationing. The administration vehemently denied this allegation. Well, it turns out that the Affordable Care Act, known as Obamacare, has led to rationing already. And the major provisions of the law haven't even kicked in yet. Well, we passed the law. Now what? According to Kaiser Health News, 16 states have already set limits on the number of prescription medications they will cover for Medicaid patients. Illinois, the president's home state, was the latest to impose prescription drug caps for Medicaid patients. 4. Alabama has an even tighter limit. 1. Doctors fear the state's cost-cutting move could backfire on patients who have to get state permission to go beyond the limit, said KHN. And this law from an administration in a Democratic Party that claimed to be champions of the poor. For the record, Medicaid is a federally mandated program that is carried out and funded, in part, by the states. This quote from CNSnews.com states it forms an important element of President Barack Obama's health care plan because under the Patients Protection Affordable Care Act, a large number of people will be covered by Medicaid as the income cap is raised for the program. And that explains why that aspect of the law is crucial to so many new Medicaid recipients. The fact that the federal government mandate, it does not mean that the states have to accept it or participate in it. In fact, that's about the only positive thing critics about the health care reform law gleaned from the U.S. Supreme Court's ruling on the constitutionality of Obamacare and shoring up the Common Clause, in shoring up the Commerce Clause. The majority of justices said the law could not require states to increase funding of Medicaid to account for increased participation. They could opt out if they want to. And so far, many governors, not governments. I guess each state is its own government. Oh, I wish it were true. Wish there was no federally mandated anything. Well, many governors said they would. Of those that remain, a number of them are simply curbing Medicaid benefits when and where they can. Justifying the indefensible? I think so. Some analysts have attempted to explain away this early rationing. This quote from C-SPAN's Washington Journal program, Phil Golowitz, staff writer for Kaiser Health News, said, quote, drugs make up a fair amount of cost for Medicaid. A lot of states have said a lot of drugs are available in generics where they cost less, so they see this sort of another move to push patients to take generics instead of brand name prescriptions. Remember, the law is only 2 years old. Most of it has yet to be implemented, and already we're seeing the negative effects we were warned about prior to its passage. And to this recent predictions that there will be shortages of primary care physicians because of the tens of millions of new patients who are going to be loaded onto health insurance rolls, private and government, because we all have to have it now. And we're developing quite a health care crisis in America. But hey, we were told this law would make everything better. When will we learn that every time Washington gets bitten by the good idea fairy, the country gets an infection? I'm Michael Wordsworth with Wordsworth listening to. If not spoken properly, they're worth listening to. I'll be right back.
You're listening to RiverWestRadio.com. Are you tired of commercials always telling you that you're tired when you know you're tired because you wake up early and go to bed late and every moment in between is spent trying to figure out how you're going to make the next dollar? Well, you're not alone. Millions of Americans are walking around in a sleep-deprived, zombie-like state amplified by psych beds and pharmaceuticals found in the drinking water. So just be glad you're not one of them, unless you are, in which case I'm sorry you had to hear this. But wait, there's more. If we keep at this current pace, we will surely lose our democratic republic and soon be standing in food lines for the poisonous rations the new totalitarian government will hand out. Don't delay. Get involved. Get informed.
And now, live from River West Radio, the man with words worth listening to, your host, Michael Wordsworth.
Yeah, all right, we are back. It's Friday. It's a nice day. What does that matter? What matters is what we're talking about. I have Kate finally, as promised, here in studio here. I'm going to punch her in. Kate, how are you?
I'm great, Michael. Thank you for having me.
There you go. Just check your levels. Sounds pretty good. I invited Kate to talk today about a variety of subjects. We're going to start off with milk. Milk's everybody drinks milk just about, except for the lactose intolerant. And you got to ask, Why are people suddenly lactose intolerant? Is it the condition of the milk? Is it the cows? Is it our practices? Why all of a sudden are we lactose intolerant? Kate, just off the bat, I mean, you start us off.
Well, I don't know why we're experiencing a rash of lactose intolerant people, but I do know that we're not cows, and we're certainly not baby cows. So cow's milk is really not intended for us. The calcium is not available to humans. We do not have the proper enzymes to digest the caseinate, which the calcium attaches to, which forms a glue. Makes it very difficult for humans to digest it and have that calcium become available.
And you said that's why we use the hooves themselves for glue, is because
Yes.
it has this calcinate, you
Right,
call
because
it?
of this caseinate that's with the calcium, that's what forms the strong bones and strong hooves, which of course we have used as glue for hundreds of years, actually.
So in a sense, we're drinking milk glue.
Well, in a sense, we're drinking the milk that's intended for baby cows, and we don't have the digestive tract of a baby cow, and that, of course, is going to make it difficult for us.
Mama. No, I am not a baby cow, and we don't even have a baby cow in the studio. One thing I wanted to add about like milk, for some reason, for thousands of years, we were able to drink it raw, straight from the cow itself. For all the problems that milk has, one thing we do know that pasteurization and homogenization was not an improvement by modern society. As I understand, it was basically the very pretense that allowed Big Agra to throw out the little guy. You used to have milkmen come in your house bringing milk. Often they would become the only problem with that was occasionally babies would get born while husbands were at work. And it was blamed on the milkman. Always got the blame for that one. Mm-hmm. We're not sure how many bastard children of milkmen there are out there, but that's no reason to homogenize and pasteurize milk, which essentially blasts all the nutrients and helpful benefits that you could even derive from raw milk. Despite the fact that even if it was raw, though, not pasteurized, not homogeneous, not heat treated, as it basically comes out, that's the procedure. Is milk good for us? I mean, even in the raw form. I mean, I guess it's.
That's a question a lot of people have asked. First of all, for centuries, human beings have done fine without cow's milk. Cows, as an animal, are actually came into our lives quite a bit later in our evolutionary process. Originally, we would have had goats and sheep and much smaller mammals, hoofed mammals, to get milk from. So cows were really something that was developed over centuries of time. So we were doing fine. And I must agree with you, pasteurization, although it helps improve the sanitation of some food, does destroy the essential vitamins and nutrients in the products. One thing I've noticed is that they are starting now to insist that apple cider be pasteurized. And going to your point about pasteurization, this is going to run the little guy out of business because he will not be able to afford the equipment.
Oh, I didn't even consider that. I mean, and what's the pretense for pasteurization of apple cider?
There was one person who got sick from drinking some cider, and I don't remember the details of the story, but I do recall that, as in many times is the case, someone did something they were not supposed to do, consequently got sick. And when it was reported, of course, it was erroneously blamed on the apple cider and not on human error. So as of a few years ago, we're now required to have all of our apple cider pasteurized. It's extremely difficult to find raw cider.
So no more mom and pop production of apple cider.
It's becoming much more difficult.
Oh, and see, when I'm shopping in the stores, I'm always looking for the mom and pop local guys. It's very important to support them. And now to hear this sounds like another instance where Big Agra is going to win out if people don't stand up and say, look, we don't need our apple cider pasteurized. They're saying that they're doing it to prevent disease, but I would pose you the question, how does removing nutrients from all of our foods prevent disease? If anything, it promotes disease. Immune system not getting its proper nutrients and is not a good immune system.
Another side effect of the nutrients being removed from the food is that we continue to eat the food. We're getting the sugar, we're getting the calories, but we're getting empty calories. Maybe not as empty as totally processed
Right,
food.
but even the fats, the fat content, it's not a healthy fat.
No, because
It's not a good fat.
Once fat is heated, it becomes a trans fat. So it doesn't matter if you're heating butter in your own frying pan to scramble eggs or if some industry is doing it before they use it in the food they're manufacturing. It has been changed. Raw nuts versus roasted nuts, that's a good example of a trans fat. We think that nuts are good for us, but truly only in the raw form. So
That's
Another
that's a
way.
great point. I mean, that's because I know a lot of people drink their milk because they're craving that fat. I found out just within the last year that the human diet should comprise like about 50% fats, but that includes nuts. How much? 30%?
30%.
I've heard. Maybe I could be mistaken. I mean, it happens.
Should be 50% of vegetables and fruit.
Really? Mm-hmm. Well, now some people, and when I say even at 30% fat, the fat I'm talking about is butter fat, peanuts, almonds, coconut milk.
Right. I don't think you're talking about butter fat because remember, butter is an animal product, so it's consequently the fat is actually cholesterol. So any dairy products or animal products could not be included in that healthy fat. They're talking about things from vegetative sources like grapeseed oil, olive oil. Those are all things that are vegetables.
Now, I mean, it's great that you brought that up because cholesterol, as I understand it from what I've been reading, is not the horrendous monster it's made out to be. Clearly, there's bad types of cholesterol that the body doesn't process. But is not the brain made up of cholesterol?
Yes, and that's a very rarely known and recognized fact. It is. The brain is really a mass of fat. And
I guess it's necessary to think you would need, I know you need omega-3s in there. There's certain things that lubricate and allow the transition of synaptic nerve communication to occur better, operate better.
we make our own cholesterol. Our liver does that. You have HDL and LDL
right.
fats.
And now one, and this is actually new information. Actually, as far as, I mean, I haven't heard this in many years, and now over the last year I got hip to this, as we say here in River West. I got hip to this that okay. I don't know if you know this off the top of your head, but HDL and LDL are the two components of cholesterol. One, as I understand it, actually regulates pH in the body. It's either HDL or LDL.
I'm not sure. I get which is the good and which is the bad mixed up frequently.
It turns out, and this is I'm glad you put it that way. From the articles I've read from Natural News, Dr. McCullough, is they're both good.
You need them both to function.
One registers the pH, and the other takes away the impurities and toxins out of your bloodstream and brings them to the liver to be processed.
It actually does more than that. Fats help with neural transmissions so that your body can send signals to its extremities and then back to the brain for interpretation. It insulates, it regulates temperature, but we do not need to be ingesting animal fat or cholesterol in order to survive. We will do okay just with vegetative and other dietary sources and our own livers.
Well, clearly, I mean, you have vegetarians out there. Mm-hmm. You have people, they feel better suited to consume only vegetables and vegetable fats, and so they have to eat certain nuts to make up for what they would lack. They're not getting the amino acids out of meat.
That's an interesting thing, Michael, because I believe a lot of people are very much unaware of the fact that beans and rice provide all of the proteins, all of the B vitamins, and all of those amino acids that you need in one meal.
That's good news, actually. Just from, I like a good piece of meat, actually a good piece of meat. Personally, I only eat wild-caught salmon from Alaska, farm grass-fed beef here in Wisconsin, and I'm kind of fond of Amish chicken, which at this point I'm pretty sure that they're safe to eat. It's a damn good chicken. That's all I can tell you. It tastes like what a chicken used to taste like, and boy, it's a long time. Over the years, all this food's changed. I mean, even milk itself does not seem to be the same creature that it was when we were kids.
Well, of course not. They have gone through as much hybridization with the cows as they have with, for instance, wheat, strains of wheat. So what we're having now is not the same cow as 600 years ago running free in the ranges of the prince's grounds, because cows were actually cultivated quite a bit in England as the main animal they hunted for meat. So the Parker cows, which is one of the original breeds of cows to us.
Wait, that makes me ask right away, are cows indigenous to America, or did we bring them over?
They are not. They were brought over.
There you go, just like the horse.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly.
See, you learn something every day. Every day. That's amazing. So cows and horses, which is essentially what we call America, didn't exist until the Europeans brought them.
Well, that is the Caucasian version of America, and not,
yes.
yeah, not the Native Americans version.
Or the term I like is Eurocentric.
There you go. That's a wonderful term. I like that.
The Eurocentric version.
Milk is so dominant in our culture. I think they spend an awful lot of time finding ways to make products to improve shelf life and all these, the mouth appeal of it. And so it's researched quite a bit. But the research that you may not hear so much about is the fact that radiation shows up in cow's milk. And it's actually a very good way to keep track of radiation clouds from accidents like Chernobyl, for instance.
Chernobyl, I remember, and I don't have the facts or the news articles that document this, but I heard that when Chernobyl went down, we were dumping cow's milk here in Wisconsin.
Yes, we were. Actually, what they do is they monitor the northern tier states, and the reason for that is that radioactive particles are carried in the jet stream globally. So to think that you can have an isolated event is really naive and one of these finger-crossing kind of stopgap. That's not going to be the case. So what they were discovering is that the cows in the northern tier states were having a higher degree of radiation for months after Chernobyl was gone. The reason for this would be twofold. One, the circulating particles in the jet stream, our air supply, our world air supply, but also radiation falls into the ground and is taken up by grass, and it's in the soil. And cows, of course, are primarily grazing animals. And so they are ingesting the radioactivity.
That's what I heard, is any broadleaf, broad grass item that can, where particulates, and as I understand it, when we talk about radiation traveling, radiation in itself is photonic. It's very small photons, unstable.
Quite small.
And they have to, in order to travel, they have to bond on to other elements. Other chemicals. I was talking to a guy about this, and I was just wondering, because I mentioned the radioactive cloud from Fukushima, and he said, "What do you mean? Radiation just doesn't travel in a cloud?" And I was like, "Well, yes, it does. There's a plume. Some of the particulates of I was talking about cesium-137 and strontium. They're a lot different from the iodine types of radiation. What's the iodine version?" I can't remember.
I can't remember. I'm sorry. I don't remember either.
It's all right. That's what Google's for. Get out there and look it up, people. The different types of radiation just spewing out of Fukushima. Still, a lot of it went in the ocean. But when I mentioned a radioactive cloud, he said, and this guy was a really educated guy. I respect him a lot. And I thought he had a good question. I just wish I could answer that better. But I know that buckyballs, they call them buckyballs, showed up on the California coast as little chunks of radioactive material. I forgot what the material is, like some carbon-based thing.
But it will bond. I think your point is that the carbon atom, or that the radioactive ions themselves will bond to other things. And I do believe that is one of the, the physical way that we probably see them dispersed most often. But I think, and I'm not absolutely sure, I know there are different theories, but if you think of that radiation cloud that you're talking about as maybe being gasoline, as you see, gasoline is in a liquid state. If you pour it out on the ground, it will become vapor. And what you see is like a mirage, that shimmering effect. You can call that a vapor cloud. And I liken that to what a radiation cloud would be like. So it's a very advantageous molecule. It has to find something to bond to. And I'm going to theorize that it acts like dust particles in rain molecules. It may actually even be able to bond into the moisture, into water molecules in the air, in order to be able to travel in the jet stream, because of course the jet stream is not a dry body of air. It would have a humidity level.
I know we've got radiation still circling the globe from Chernobyl. Is that a false assessment?
I don't think that's true.
Really?
No, I
Okay.
think that stopped.
Think
because-
this about what year was that? 90s?
Oh, I don't remember.
I know,
exactly.
right? We should.
I'm sorry.
Kate and I both have a few years under our belt. We're not saying we're old.
No.
We're just saying we're not kids anymore, and we do remember some of these events. It's kind of not to get nostalgic, but I remember when we were kids, people talking about events like World War II and Vietnam and, things that we weren't alive for, of course. But now it's really strange to be at this point where we're talking about things that, like, if you were, anybody 10 years or they don't hear that. But we remember Chernobyl. That wasn't actually a big thing. It was a lot like what Fukushima was today. Okay, so if Chernobyl isn't still circling the globe, and I thought it was.
I think it's 30 years, and I'll tell you
30
why that
years.
comes to mind. Because they recently did a study, and I believe the study was done last year, released last year. Animals are actually starting to return to that area that they cordoned off. That was, I don't know how many miles surrounding the Chernobyl factory itself. And
the people they're living there again.
I'm not talking about the people, because people will do things that are foolish. They'll make foolish decisions and go into places they shouldn't be. But animals will not come back. They will not risk their own lives, and they do not come back to an area until they can sustain themselves on that land. And they have been noticing birds coming back. And birds are wonderful indicators, kind of like the canary in the coal mine.
Right.
They can test eggshells, because that is one of the weakest areas, one of the primary places you are going to find damage in a species,
Like
a bird species. Eggshells.
Eggs, and then I believe frogs are good indicators too.
Absolutely. That's one of the ways I think we had a nuclear incident somewhere in New England, didn't we, about 20 years? It was a few years after Chernobyl, I think it was. It was the next incident. Irregardless, one of the things that they noticed was deformed frogs, and actually deformed frogs have been the canary in the coal mine again for other toxic waste. And I think we all know, that paralegal, I'm trying to think of her name. They had a movie about her. She championed the cause for a community that got poisoned by improper disposal of chemical waste from a factory. The children were coming down with unique forms of cancer, very rare forms of leukemia and stuff. Erin Brockovich, there we go, that was her
Erin
name.
Brockovich.
One of the indicators that they used was the fact that the frogs were deformed. 3 legs, no legs, just serious deformities.
I was just looking up here on Google, actually Wikipedia, just to see if I could find some information specific to the Chernobyl thing.
But speaking of raw milk, of course,
Yeah,
the radiation is an indicator in milk, the levels and things that are toxic. So yes, back to your point, there's a lot of milk being dumped, and there's a lot of things going on that we're not hearing about.
That's why we have this show, and hopefully people are tuned in today to get information that they couldn't obtain from mostly nowhere else. There's a bunch of alternative media sources out there, but they're just not as prominent, they're not as well known, and I myself gather information from them to bring this news to you. I guess radiation is still remaining a problem.
Yes.
That Fukushima has not gone away. It's still spewing out radiation. So we can at least surmise that there's a bioaccumulative effect of radiation affecting our food supply, affecting, like you said, landing on the grass, the leaves. The cows eat it. That's where it becomes bioaccumulative. And then we eat the cows. So are we drinking and eating radiation right now? I mean, that would be a damn good question.
I would imagine that we might actually be able, because of the proximity of Japan, we don't think of it being that close, but as far as the wind patterns and things go, and how the weather comes from that area, hits the Pacific, and then crosses
All
west
along
across
the northern
continent.
hemisphere, it stays
Absolutely.
within that certain stream.
Absolutely. So I think it would be rather naive to believe that we aren't actually getting fallout from the air. And, I believe that some of the more sensitive individuals amongst us might possibly be feeling some of the effects of radiation in the atmosphere.
I often wonder myself. I know we've been mentioning that, and it's hard to say, like, why do I feel a little off kilter? And it's interesting to actually contemplate, is it radiation poisoning?
Mm-hmm.
And again, just to throw out the disclaimer, Kate's joining me on the show today. We want to thank her for joining us. Your profession is an arborist. Did I say that?
I'm a tree doctor, yes, a master gardener as well.
Okay, and so and you spend a lot of time traveling up in northern Wisconsin, and actually one of your favorite things to do is to travel the waterways.
Yes.
By kayak.
Yeah, or actually solo canoe. I'm going to be a snob.
Is that what they call it, a solo canoe?
No, it's a different vehicle.
Oh,
Kayak
pardon
is a
me?
kayak. That's okay.
No, that's great. That's viewers should know, and for those of you that have ever solo canoed, just from what I've heard Kate explain, it's not easy. But the point in mentioning this is that Kate is up there in northern Wisconsin, and often from time to time she tells me things that we may or may not have heard in the media. One of those things was that gas spill in St. Croix. Wanted to talk about that. Kate's got a map here.
The counties that would be affected, the St. Croix River actually comes out of Solon Springs, which is in Douglas County. Now, if you don't know where Douglas County is, that would be the uppermost corner of the state of Wisconsin. Duluth Superior would be the northwestern corner of that state. Highway 27 would be the eastern border. The major highway that runs through there is Highway 53, and people who go through to Spooner, Rice Lake, go through Chippewa Falls would all be taking 53 as the major thoroughfare to get up to that area. So that's where Douglas County and Solon Springs are. St. Croix Foliage also goes through just the northwestern corner of Washburn County, goes through a good section of Burnett County before it actually ends up joining the Mississippi River right below, right about the Twin Cities. I'm not exactly sure. I think it's actually in the Twin Cities that the St. Croix flows into the Mississippi. But that would be the shoulder, the upper shoulder of the state, if people are not familiar with these roads in these cities.
Okay. And well, basically, I was going to try and pull up some articles and I couldn't find them real quick, but do you know off the top of your head, do you remember basically what kind of disaster are they facing up there? I heard that there was benzoine.
Let's go back, if I may.
Please.
Let's go back and talk about the outrage myself and my fellow water enthusiasts felt when the state allowed the companies that wanted to string this pipeline, allowed them to come through without any kind of an abatement plan. Basically, they were allowed to lay this pipe without having to do serious ecological studies or do any real true planning to mitigate the influence not only the construction would have, but the long-term effects of having this pipe present would have. And when I talk about construction, I think one thing we've all commonly experienced is seeing black cloth inside the sewer covers when we see construction going on, like in a building or a road, and that is to keep the dirt and other things from flowing into the sewer. So they were not asked to take even a minor precaution such as that. It was very, very minimal.
So if there was an earthquake, say, I mean, that was something that if you build a pipeline, you'd maybe want to spend the extra money and make it earthquake-proof or shut off valves or...
And we have a 6-inch, semi-frost here annually. We freeze. Okay, our soil freezes down a few inches. You would think that someone would want to take proper precautions to make sure that pipe was insulated and supported and not just laid on bare ground. One of the incidences over this year...
Wait, it was just laid on bare ground?
I don't know the exact details.
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry, but...
But I can tell you for a fact, because I was told by an official working on this project, that the reason we had the gas main break over at the airport was because that petroleum company was allowed to also lay pipe unprotected 3/4 of a mile around the southeastern, eastern, and northeastern borders of the airport. And of course it cracked. You gotta be kidding me. We have such serious building standards. Plumbers will tell you, people who lay irrigation systems will tell you that all of our building laws require that they go beyond a certain depth to bring the pipe below the frost line.
Isn't that 3 feet minimum?
I think for building it may be.
I
but
thought like a gas line has to be like at least 3 feet down.
I don't know about, that seems a little far
The
by
point
today's.
being, yeah, but these guys
Didn't do that. No, they didn't take precautions. It's not laid in a culvert. The pipe is not insulated or supported in any manner. And so when it cracked, it spilled everywhere. That's running into culverts there. It's running into one of the creekways there, and they stopped talking about it, but I'm telling you the damage, and I've told by officials who are working with the company that it's going to be months before that is all cleaned up. The soil has been contaminated, the water in that area has been contaminated, and we're not being told about that anymore, nor are we being told what the consequences to the company for such irresponsible behavior. What are their consequences? Their fines. Why aren't they being sued? Why aren't we being told that our waterway and our land over there is being protected by our voted government officials? It's outrageous.
It is outrageous. We're going to take a break for a quick second, come back and continue talking about this. And I'd also wanted to read an article real quick when we come back about you got potassium iodide tablets being distributed to Pennsylvania residents living near nuclear power plants.
There you go.
It's just like son of a.
And we can explain why that's important when we come back from break.
Talk to you soon.
You're listening to RiverWestRadio.com.
The kitchen is the heart of the home. But at Monsanto, we're a megalithic agricultural group attempting to destroy farmers all across your country. We bring you horrible foods that attack your stomach lining, DNA, give you kidney and liver failure. Monsanto, bringing Franken foods to your family at home. Don't you just hate us? Say no to GMO.
And now, live from River West Radio, the man with words worth listening to, your host, Michael Wordsworth.
PSAs or anything like that?
Public service announcements. Yes, we do PSAs continuously here. That's what I kind of regard everything to be. We're talking with Kate here, but I wanted to read this article from Adon Salazar at Infowars.com because I thought it was it's kind of related. This is about Pennsylvania. We're talking about Wisconsin, radiation, milk, cows, waterways being polluted. It's all related. Actually, I don't think we're being schizophrenic here. I think this is all related. Well, I want to read this. The Pennsylvania Department of Health is giving away potassium iodide tablets to anyone living near any of the 5 nuclear power plants located throughout the state. The Department of Health issued this press release on the 6th. The Department of Health is again providing free potassium iodide, or K1, tablets on Thursday, August 9th to help Pennsylvanians be prepared for public health emergencies involving nuclear facilities. I had to laugh because I'm wondering, you give these to people and they, like, the emergency actually happens and they're thinking, where did I put those damn things? Honey, have you seen the potassium iodide? Look under the cooler. I stashed it. I didn't want the kids to get into them. I think they did. They're outside playing with them right now. Well, anyhow, there is no information in the press release on exactly why the health department has decided to give away K1 tablets, but a report from last year said it was a monthly occurrence. The importance of taking the tablets is noted in the release. Taken as directed during a radiological emergency, I called it K1, but I believe it's KI as in for potassium iodide. Sorry about that, listening audience. Potassium iodine can help protect the thyroid gland against harmful radioactive iodine. Individuals should only take KI tablets when directed to do so by the state of health officials or the governor. Yes, that's never do anything unless some official or expert tells you to do something. And if they tell you to take off your head, you freaking take off your head right away. Well, the Exelon Corporation, the company that owns the Limerick Generating Station, late last month took Unit 2 offline due to a possible malfunction in a main steam valve, indicated by a rise in temperatures. According to the AP, which is the Associated Press, plant spokeswoman Dana Malia said that the valve could only be replaced if the reactor was taken offline. They further noted that the Unit 1 reactor had to be shut down due to an electrical problem on July 18th, but that is now fully operational. Reuters notes that this summer's high temperatures may have played a part in the shutdown. This quote, although the heat is more difficult to use the warmer river water to cool power plants and can stress power lines due to high usage. Isn't that interesting?
And that's what they're concerned about.
The reactors did not necessarily shut due to the heat, but I guess that's what they're saying. I'm kind of wondering why. It's kind of unusual that somebody would pass out potassium iodine tablets to people in the area.
I wonder if you would suspect that that was maybe to prevent mass hysteria, kind of putting a Band-Aid on the pending surgical scar that's coming, or surgical incision. One of the reasons that potassium iodine pill is important is because after doing some reading on radiation sickness before coming here to speak to you, is that the iodine molecule is a small and identical size to the radiation molecule. So if you have a full iodine complement in your body, the radiation will not then take the place and fill the space for iodine. Same is true with calcium molecules. There are types of radiation available in the environment that also will come and take the place of calcium if you are calcium depleted. Again, it's an advantageous molecule size so that they can easily slip in and take the place of those things. And as we were talking about milk earlier, Michael, it's interesting to note that even without the hormones, without the antibiotics, the radiation that they're eating in the grass and the soil that they're laying in, that milk has been found just not to be a healthy thing for adults, more so than children, for humans at least, not for cows. So reports that I have read, and I think that this information is relatively available to people, even in the magazines in your doctor's office, that men over 35 really should not be ingesting milk, not so much cheese, because that's a fermented product and it's been changed, it's been altered, but milk in general, because it's very mucus forming for them and it will cause a variety of problems. We see mucus forming problems in babies as well. We see a much increased incidence of children who are fed a diet with a lot of milk have much more.
What ages are you talking about?
You can't give cow's milk to a child under the age of 2, but I think between the age it's appropriate, maybe 3 or 4 years old, up to about 12 or 13.
Really? They say you can't give milk to the baby under the age of 2?
It's the problem. Yeah, I don't think their stomachs are strong enough.
I'm a parent, and I should know that.
I'm sure a parent
you're
with
a parent
child
as well?
would know that. Yeah, they'll tell you at the doctor's office.
Geez, don't trust me with your babies.
But it is mucus forming and consequently will cause ear infections. So there's a much higher incidence of children who do drink milk, cow's milk, than children who do not. Children who do not drink milk actually are much healthier in many respects.
And we do know that children that are raised on the breast milk of their human mothers do the best. They have 10 to 15% brain growth better, immune system's better. It's the best thing that, nature kind of built it that way. It's the best thing for a baby. That's really interesting, though. I didn't know you're not supposed to give a baby under 2 years. Definitely. We're talking about not giving us milk.
Right.
Why would we want to give babies milk, especially when there really isn't any nutrient in there or any real benefit?
Their insides are not developed enough.
That's hard to. You were making the point. It's hard to digest.
Very hard to
digest.
Period. But again, despite the hormones, the antibiotics, and radiation that you might ingest from cow products, it's mucus forming, and it's actually meaning that it's irritating to us to ingest it. So men, I don't know what particular illnesses they have a higher incidence of, but men who continue to drink milk after the age of 35 do have more health issues than men who do not.
After the age of 35?
Mm-hmm.
Well, goodness, I'm glad I actually, for the most part, I've stopped drinking milk, being a man.
You're
over
over
the
35.
age, and I'm also a sorcerer, a mage. No, I'm sorry.
I want to give credit, though, to the mothers who do breastfeed, because it's not something that we're encouraged to do. Even within my own family, I met with some ridicule. One of my own siblings chose not to breastfeed for many different reasons, but when it came my turn and I chose to make that commitment, and that's a huge commitment of time, I was ridiculed by a lot of people.
That seems to be the for breastfeeding your baby.
That's right, for doing what's right and the best thing you can, and you have a mentally, emotionally stronger child if you're able to form that bond.
It's so common to the human experience. I mean, only in the last 100 years have we even deviated from what we've done for the last million years. And you're right that the whole perception of breast milk, it's like, I don't want to say poo-pooed, because it's one, that's not even a good term, but it's minimalized, demonized, ostracized.
All those are sized.
It's all of the sized.
Absolutely.
You guys from that, just like you're saying though, that for a woman to breastfeed in public or to take the time to breastfeed, I mean, it's
and that is ridiculous how that is so over enlarged. First of all, most babies are shy creatures and will not freely latch on and feed in a strange environment around a lot of people or noise or anything that isn't calm. And it's funny that they would think anything different. Babies generally, when mothers breastfeed, we are taught by previous mothers who have breastfed to cover. We have the little warming blankets. We cover with those so that we have a private environment that we've created, relaxing and calm. The distractions are removed, and then the baby will latch on and nurse. Most of them will not. You don't just unbutton your blouse and go at it, because the baby will not do it.
Yeah, I did not know that.
So it's ridiculous when they talk about women just whipping it out in a public place. Who are these people, and what do they know about, humans?
Where have we come to the point where we're actually, that it's better to take some infant formula that was put out by a corporation and shove it in our kid's mouth versus, you might know this, what is that infant formula made of? I just thought of that. Like, what are we feeding our babies?
It's pretty scary stuff, I think. They put whey in it, which, of course, is a cow's milk product.
Okay.
There are soy formulas, but they're making synthetic. Basically, they are synthetic products, somehow that are removed from their natural source to be able to enrich some innards.
Does it even work? Is it digestible by the baby?
I'll tell you, I've had a number of friends with children who have breastfed, and I had one girlfriend whose baby was colicky. She was doing everything that the doctor told her to do, and he told her to supplement with Similac. Oops, can I say that? Can I mention the brand?
No, you can mention
Okay.
any brands, especially if you're talking bad about them.
Okay.
It's truth in advertising here.
Well, I apologize. It was just the only brand that we had.
Yeah, what do you got?
so-
Similac, Infamil. I mean, these are
Right.
all horrible. I mean, I'm happy to mention them because they're just horrible things you should never feed your children.
Well, one thing we found out as new mothers is that the iron that is in Similac is not digestible. My nephew had colic for 9 months until the mother and I could read and learn and talk to other mothers.
And colic is, boy, it's been like 18 years since I've been, I've had to raise a baby, so I'm a little, the babies get colicky.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, most people know this, but some don't out in the audience. What is it caused by? What are you saying then?
The iron. It was giving them a tremendous upset stomach. Probably, I would think something like acid stomach.
Because they couldn't digest solid metal.
Exactly. The iron was not, I don't know, I'm sure it was chelated because it would be insane not to put a chelated form of iron, but it doesn't matter. First of all, the babies don't need that much iron. And second of all, it's being delivered them into in
How
a
much
state
damn
they
iron
can't.
does a baby need? You know, it's just
It's
like
pretty
it's like
small.
now fortified with iron. You know what I bet it was? They're thinking like, how can we cut this formula down with something? We got to cut it. We got to step on it, as they say on the street.
Exactly.
And we're like, this damn whey, this cow whey is doing. What are we gonna do? Hey, we got all these iron filings. We got to get rid of. Let's mix them in the formula and tell parents that your babies need more iron.
And let me point out to you too, Michael, since it has been a few years for you, that most babies who are breastfed do not suffer from colic. I'm not saying they are excluded from it, but their causes of colic are much more symptomatic and environmental, like maybe hiccups from nursing in a loud environment where they're swallowing more air, but they're all colics of natural and acute form, not chronic.
And just colic in itself. What is the definition of colic?
Oh, I couldn't
like
tell you.
burping up.
You mean the symptoms of colic?
Yeah. What is it actually physically happening there?
It's a distress in the digestive system. I'm not sure if it goes past the stomach into the intestines or not.
And
but
it causes them to burp up.
It will cause burp ups. It causes
The
I
baby
think-
will cry. It'll be in
'cause it's
pain and
painful. Well,
discomfort.
they're creating gas.
Oh, but I tell you,
internally.
gas pains. We all describe it as like a knife being stuck in your gut. It's one
Right.
of the worst pains you can
Okay,
experience.
so we have this infant who's maybe 8 pounds, who's got the worst pain they've ever suffered, worst trauma so far in their lives, and all they can do is scream and cry.
Poor babies. Well, let's feed them good old-fashioned mother's breast milk.
There you go.
Let's raise them on organic food. Why? Because we want food with nutrients, and we want food with no poisons in it.
Basically, no poisons would be nice, but if they continue deciding to add supplements and pasteurize things, our food supply really is being threatened. We're no longer being fed healthy food. Now, I know that there are a lot of very politically noisy people that would like to spin conspiracy theories and things of that sort and try to tell you that their government is lowering the quality of food to make us all dependent and sick. Well, I don't think it's anything that organized or thought out. I really think we're looking at greed. I think we're looking at cheaper ways to do things. And I think we're looking at the fact that our buying habits very much influence the industry. And that if we start making smarter choices in the kind of food that we buy and demand things not be pasteurized, demand things not have additives, GMO, etc., and say enough is enough, that might be a way to influence the kind of food that we can buy.
Without a doubt. I mean, you're talking about voting with our dollars. I mean, this is
Exactly.
something that doesn't require any elected officials.
No ID?
Very, probably the height of democracy here because
Absolutely. We hit them where they live. And if they're motivated by greed and making money, and we're saying we're not going to play unless the product you're willing to sell us is of a better quality, well, I think that's a much more rational explanation for why our food supply is so tainted and so ill versus, somebody trying to invent world domination by making us all sick and helpless.
right. I mean, we've got Arthur Daniels Michelin. I hope I pronounced them right. Actually, I don't care. ADM. They're evil. They're bastards. You got Monsanto.
Monsanto, DuPont.
DuPont's a big agra now?
Oh my gosh.
I'm sure.
have
What are
been
they
for
not
years.
into? Really? Yeah.
Well, they race neck and neck with Monsanto. Who can come out with the most toxic chemical? See, one of the things that people in my industry, in the green industry, working with plants and trees and flowers, that we have been disheartened by is to see the regulations on pesticides changed and to see products that we used to be licensed. We had to take courses, pass tests, and be licensed by the state to apply. You can now buy many of these products over the counter at any Walgreens, Walmart.
You want to talk about Roundup for a second? You ever, I mean, that's
I know. That was that's the product that I was thinking of.
Roundup,
when
right.
Roundup was one of the ones that when I first started in the industry was still regulated and you could not buy it over the counter.
And now you can get it at Stein's
Yes,
or
anywhere.
just anywhere.
Anywhere.
Oh, feed it to your babies. It's
Well,
kinda-
Roundup's not going to hurt the babies so much. Now, let me explain a little bit about Roundup. Roundup is a combination of several chemicals working together. Once Roundup is applied, within 24 hours of it having contact with the ground, the bond that bonds those chemicals together breaks, and it becomes back into an inert form where all those chemicals are hanging out individually but not as a group. And they need to be a group to be effective. Roundup is a non-discriminatory chlorophyll killing chemical, which means by non-discriminatory.
Okay, all plants have chlorophyll in them, hence the
but
green
not
color.
all of them are green. There are some
Right,
white. So
right. Okay.
I want to be clear because I don't want to be any more confusing with technical information.
No, great. Please continue.
So Roundup dissipates within 24 hours once it's sprayed. It also takes a little longer to work. Most people are looking for results in 2 or 3 days. It actually takes 7 to 10 days. And people generally misapply it. They'll come home from work, see the weeds, go, I got to get to this, and they'll spray. Well, Roundup needs to be applied in the morning. It will not be effective if it's applied late afternoon. So now we have people who are not reading label recommendations, using a chemical non-discriminately that will kill anything that's green.
Right, it's not idiot-proof, in other words.
Not at all. Not at all.
Okay, very good. Boy, I'm so glad we mentioned this. If you're listening out there, kids, are talking about Roundup and that, just like read the damn label because
yes,
I wouldn't put it on my garden anyhow. I individually go out there with a needle and kill every insect that comes in my garden.
Well, Roundup is an herbicide, not a pesticide.
Okay.
So it won't help you there.
Excellent. So we're talking about fighting weeds.
Exactly.
Son of a bitch.
Exactly. And I want to tell people about corn gluten as being the new green way to fertilize your lawn.
Please do. You know a lot about this, being a tree doctor and everything.
Well, I want to tell people that that's fine. If you want to put it on your lawn, that's fine. I can tell you that personally, I do not know yet whether people who have gluten intolerance problems would be safe to have this in their environment. So I would definitely recommend people who have allergies and issues check with their allergist as to whether corn gluten has ever been found to be a trigger for people with gluten intolerance. But again, it's one of these cases where corn is used to make a lot of products. So they have a byproduct, which is corn gluten. Let's see what we can do with it. What kind of things can we invent and use for this product? Much like I believe that you've told your listeners about fluoride being a byproduct of aluminum production. Well, corn gluten would then be a byproduct of things like corn syrup production and other things of that.
I see. So you got to do something with it. You can't dump it in the environment.
Right. But you can bag it and sell it as an organic green fertilizer and charge $20 or $30
Son of a gun. So boy, I hope everybody listening out there got that tip. There's no need to put corn gluten on your...
But you can. I'm not saying no, because it is a natural element. I mean, it's a natural thing occurring in the environment. It's not a chemical. It's not hurting anything, as long as you're not allergic to it.
Okay, good news. So it's good for the environment.
But I just want people to understand the game here is not that this is some new wonderful product they're producing. This is some product they've created a use for that's a byproduct of other things that they use.
Okay, and it's mean, and the bad part about it again, the corn gluten?
There really isn't a downside unless, again, it shows to cause reactions to people who are sensitive or allergic to it, to gluten.
Oh, okay.
It's greed. I just want people to understand it's straight out greed.
So does the product work?
Yes, it does. However, it is not an herbicide. So people still will be using chemicals to kill the weeds in their lawn, but they'll be putting the corn gluten down to sustain that weed loss and promote the grass. And I guess in the long term, that's a good thing because then they'll stop putting weed and feed on their lawns. But ultimately, I just want people to be aware of what the scam is.
Yeah, that's really good. Kate does amongst fixing trees and whatnot. You do landscaping and design actual agricultural irrigation systems. I mean, just
that
the whole
I don't
thing.
do. I'm knowledgeable of them, but I personally do direct hands-on with plants. I like to be outside. I like to be in the environment.
But you work not from just a design standpoint, but in an environmental and a harmonious human environment concern.
Absolutely, absolutely. I am very fortunate to have extremely motivated clients because I am a private for hire person. And I have been able to experiment using non-biohazardous products in a variety of ways, not just to prevent weeds, but also to control insects. So I've been very lucky to actually try different things out in the environment. And honestly, Michael, I'm going to do a test yard with gluten and see how it goes. Some people really swear by it. However, I wasn't there to see what they did to remove the weeds.
Nothing like doing it yourself. Sometimes if you want it done right, you have to do it yourself. That's it. That's great. I'm sure you do that often. There's many things. We've been talking with Kate here today on a variety of subjects, and hope you had a chance to listen to it. We covered the gasoline spill. We talked about the nature of milk in general. Now we went into breastfeeding, and now we're talking about corn gluten and taking care of your organic garden. Which, hey, look, all of it's good stuff. I mean, it's all related. I mean, we're criticizing big Agra and chemical companies and the trend to
DuPont and Monsanto.
Always a good day when we expose DuPont and Monsanto.
Absolutely.
I mean, my God, some of the biggest, these corporations are so powerful, so huge.
And they're worldwide. They're not just North America. They're in Central America. They're everywhere.
Everywhere. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, I'm going to read some more news. I want to thank Kate for joining us here. Really, I'm sure we'll actually have you on again. It's actually been a pleasure. Yeah, there's many topics Kate has. I talk to her often, and one of my favorite things is sometime you got to come on. We got to talk about words, etymology.
Absolutely.
That is a great. I love the history and source of words, and it's one of your specialties. I mean,
well, it's something that I have a number of friends who are interested in. We get together annually, several times a year, and get to have wonderful conversations about things like where the expression "chip off the old shoulder" came from.
Right, and that's chip off the old block. You mean?
Off the old block, yes.
If I remember right, guys used to go and work down in the lumber yards.
The naval shipyards in England is where that term originated, and it had to do with the fact that wood was quite scarce and that the guys were allowed to take wood scraps home after a day of building a ship. So that's the chips off the block.
So if you're a good boy, you got to take
absolutely. The best boy or the favorite boy got to take the wood scraps home so that they had a source of something to burn.
So he's a chip off the old block. This is different from carrying a chip on your shoulder?
Well, chip off the shoulder evolved from chip off the old block.
I see. You got a chip on your shoulder. I guess at that point that meant a good thing. I got a chip on my shoulder.
I think originally it might have. However, I don't think it lasted as a favorable thing for very long. I think after a while there was some jealousy and, some arrogance in there, and it turned and became not a nice phrase.
It's amazing how many phrases we use today that we really don't know the source of. I heard that the reason why this is pertaining to superstitions, why you're not supposed to walk underneath ladders, is because people used to execute people on the 7th rung of the ladder. And so the ladder was kind of like pre-cross material there that you just, like, if you didn't have a tree handy, they would take a ladder and hang a person, and I guess that would be the don't walk under the ladder.
Actually, I heard don't walk under the ladder because something might drop on your head.
That's what
that's how it was explained to me as a child.
And that is very sound. Actually, I kind of, being a house painter for at least a couple of years, repairing gutters and whatnot, even on my own house, that was the conclusion I got. I thought it was conventional human wisdom it's just not smart to walk under a ladder.
Exactly.
But then later I read how going back thousands of years, I guess, this is where the ladders have been around for thousands of years.
Unfortunately, so have crucifixes too, because that was a popular form of torture and of death back even in the Roman times.
In the Roman times, I heard they would line the streets,
line the roads.
thousands of. I always wondered that imagery of would you imagine taking a road, walking down a road, and just for like mile after mile, just like crucify people on both sides?
Well, I'll tell you, not to be a spoiler to anybody who likes vampires, but actually, it was Vladimir, the bloody...
Vlad the Impaler.
Oh, the Impaler, excuse me, yes. He did something quite similar, which got this whole vampire legend started. As he was a very bloody individual, and he would also put pikes up
poles,
with
pikes.
bodies, heads, all kinds of things, and he also would line the road for miles with... So...
Very Roman of him.
Yes. Yes.
Very Roman. Well, we are the new Romans. The Romans became the Byzantine. The Byzantine Empire became us. It's hard to say, you know.
I agree with you. We probably are the new Romans. If you look at television, Jerry Springer is certainly the new Roman Colosseum.
Yeah, it's the Colosseum ever since the advent of television has taken a wide array, but it still amounts to a rectangular box that we stare at. At least the old Colosseum, you had to get up off your ass, go up there, find a seat, pay for it. It's a lot like going to County Stadium, except instead of baseball, you'd watch lions fighting alligators or the occasional murder of slaves or the execution of criminals. And boy, great fun there, and I'm being facetious when I say that. I just, the lust for blood is something that doesn't...
No, I don't get that at all. But don't forget, they also murdered politicians in the Forum, too.
You know, if instead of screw up and move up, it'd be nice if you like went to County Stadium and they're like, this guy's responsible for robbing these many people, and we're going to kill him today. I'd show up for that. Like, die, you bastard, die. I don't, you know, I'm talking about like people that rip off elderly people, foreclose their homes, scam them. A slap on the wrist. No, I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm not calling for public executions. I don't even want to go there, but geez, it's brutal, and no, it's not something I have a stomach for. Oh, you got the motorcycles traveling through River West today between the Harleys and these little Sportsters. Of course, we're right next to Fuel Cafe, which is known for its motorcycle traffic. That's for sure. All right, look, Kate, we want to thank you for joining us. We're going to take a break, come back, read a couple articles, and then get out there, and we'll be glad to have you back again.
I would love it. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're most welcome. You're most welcome. Check with Mike. Take care. All right, we'll be back after this short break.
You're listening to RiverWestRadio.com. It's like the roaring 20s all over again. The stock markets are well above 12,000. It's as if nothing could go wrong, or could it? The truth is, the American economy is not as strong as it actually appears. The job reports for June were down, manufacturing down. The actual CPI rate, if you adjusted it correctly, would show that unemployment is at a staggering 22%. 46 million Americans are on food stamps, and guess who runs that program? Not the government, no, Goldman Sachs. I'm telling you, the situation here is more abrupt than we think. Wake up, America. We have hard times coming. And we need to prepare for what lies ahead.
Here's an update. Google to pay $22.5 million fine over privacy practices. IDG News Services reports that Google will pay a historic fine to settle U.S. government charges that it violated privacy laws when it trafficked heavy drugs. No. When it tracked via cookies users of Apple's Safari browser. See, I shouldn't confuse you like that. Anyhow, U.S. dollars of $22.5 million. It's a big civil penalty. It's the largest ever secured by the U.S. Federal Trade Commission for a violation of one of its orders, the FTC said on Thursday. However, ConsumerWatchdog.org finds the settlement inadequate for various reasons, including the amount of the fine and the fact that it allows Google to deny guilt and liability. The fine amount is chump change for Google. And the FTC shouldn't have agreed to settle. The FTC shouldn't have agreed to a settlement unless Google was willing to make an admission of guilt, said John Simpson, director of the Privacy Project at ConsumerWatchdog.org. This quote from him, John Simpson, "This is letting Google buy its way out of trouble," he said. Well, maybe good for them. This article goes on and on, but I want to blow through some of this news that I didn't get to today. U.S. Postal Service loses $5.2 billion in the mail. That's not the actual article. So it apparently was lost. We mailed it to the government. It didn't have a return address because Ted, he was on break. He came back. He put the thing on. The adhesive glue didn't stick. It fell off, and now we've lost $5.2 billion. Well, the U.S. Postal Service net loss widened to $5.2 billion during the April through June period, and the cash-strapped agency warned on Thursday that without help from the U.S. Congress, it will face low cash and be unable to borrow money this fall. Oh, my God. The Postal Service, which is... Who uses the post office anymore anyhow?
I do.
Yeah, I'm punching Kate back in.
Do you know that stamps just went up to 45 cents? I'm probably the last person to know, but postcards went up 4 cents to 32 cents now. And if I want to send a letter first class overseas, it's now going to cost me $1.07.
You know, I have no idea what postal rates are anymore. I don't use them. Who does? I mean, it's just kind of maybe ship a package, but a letter.
Well, I still send letters. I don't know anybody who doesn't get a smile out of getting a wonderful greeting card in the mail or a gift certificate, maybe.
Well, the Postal Service, which relies on the sale of stamps and other products rather than taxpayer funding, has been struggling for years as Americans increasingly communicate online and as payments for future retiree health benefits and other obligations drain its cash. A week after its first ever default on a largely required payment to the federal government, officials called on Congress to pass postal legislation that would overhaul the mail agency's business model and offer some relief from its dire financial situation.
There is one good piece in that. Milwaukee has always been cited as the best and most efficient post office in the service of North America. They send people here from all over the states to come and train to see our business model.
On other news, cops strip search mom, forcibly pull out tampon out of her for maybe rolling through a stop sign. I know I had to read this. Getting pulled over for rolling through a stop sign is whack. That's according to this article by Chris Sweeney, Broward Palm Beach News Times. He says, getting pulled over for rolling through a stop sign is whack. But getting pulled over, having a gun pointed in your face, and then being strip searched on the side of the road in front of your 2 children for rolling through a stop sign is, well, really whack, and probably an excessive use of force. Last July, Layla Tarantino claims that she was pulled over by an officer with the Citrus County Sheriff's Department. The cop then placed Tarantino in the back of the squad car where she allegedly sat for 2 hours. When backup arrived, we need backup, Tarantino was strip searched on the side of the road where passing motorists could see everything. Then in a gruesome twist, a female officer, Ossifer, that's what I was going to say. Mm-hmm. Everything's fine, Ossifer. Well, actually, I shouldn't even. This isn't even funny. It's even too sick to read, but I just got to say it because it's indicative of what's going on. That's the only reason I'm mentioning this. She was forcibly removed a tampon from Tarantino. Presumably, the cops were looking for drugs, but the lawsuit notes that a drug-sniffing dog was never called in, and cops never found any contraband or anything illegal. What could be more gross than that? The poor woman, I mean, the indignity that she suffered over this, it's like, why, what?
Wow.
I'm going to promise we were going to blow through the news. Oh, it's 6 o'clock. Jeez, I guess we got to get the hell out of here. That sucks. Some of these. I was going to read about Florida. Greenland ice more resistant to climate change than feared. I guess it's not a fear. Russia, India government outraged at Sikh shooting deaths of 6 people. But they say nothing about Monsanto-linked deaths of 200,000 farmers.
What?
Yeah, exactly. They're the recent Sikh temple shooting in Oak Creek.
Yes. I've been by there. I live in that area, and it's not a media circus, but it's locked down. Barricades.
Well, I guess the point of this article, which I didn't get to read, was, but you get the point. They're outraged over the deaths of 6 people here in Oak Creek, but 200,000 farmers, some of them like killed by the GMO, or just some of them committed suicides when they couldn't afford to buy these generic seeds from Monsanto.
Yes, they're much more expensive.
They just died, and India has nothing to say about that. Of course, I guess people aren't even a commodity there. They just toss them out. What else do we have? Oh, FDA deputy director arrested in prostitution sting scandal.
What?
I guess I got to read a little bit of this because it's just like, I like narking out the people that are always trying to narc us out. A ranking Food and Drug Administration official is facing 4 counts of soliciting prostitution and a single count of disorderly conduct stemming from his arrest by Howard County Medical. Police said last month. Dr. William Maisel, the deputy director for the Center for Devices and Radiological Health, was nabbed July 13th during an undercover sting operation along a busy corridor in Laurel, report said. Maisel was one of 10 suspects arrested in the operation. Michael Wordsworth, this has been Breaking Down the News on Friday, 2012, August 10th. Thank you for joining us today. As always, we appreciate it. And Kate, again, we're going to have Kate back on the air. Look, everybody, you take care out there. Have a good weekend. We're out. Peace out.